Welcome to The Business Fighter with Henry Penix. Henry has been the CEO, founder, and consultant to hundreds of companies worldwide. He retired a multimillionaire, financially independent at the age of 35. Henry grew up a preacher's son and was thrown in jail 3 times for various altercations. He knows what it means to come from nothing and have to fight his way to the top. Henry is the business fighter who will teach you strategic skills for winning in business and in life. Don't just spectate, participate. It's time to get in the ring.
So, as you can all hear and understand, it's not Henry, the business fighter, speaking to you today. It's Kevin, the guy from London, a very good friend of Henry's. Henry's a good friend of mine as well. And I would say the reason I'm here today is known Henry a long time. And Henry is the guy who calls himself the business fighter. And I thought it would be a good idea for us to just delve into that a little bit. And Henry could just explain a little better himself, help you to understand a bit about him and why he's the business fighter. So Henry, welcome to Henry's
podcast. Well, thank you, Kevin. I'll try to feel right at home.
So just relax, and this is not likely to hurt that much.
Okay.
So Henry, before we get into the business fighter piece, just a little bit of background about yourself. Just give me a bit of sketch about, all those happy memories you have from your youth and growing up. Just tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I don't ever remember not working. So I've always done things. I started mowing lawns at a very young age, and I always wanted to make money. For some reason, I knew there was a better life. My family was sort of middle to lower class. And I remember driving down the street one time and my mom looking at me and she said, I asked her, I said, Mom, what are those statues of those big dogs in front of that store? And she said, oh, honey, those are just for the rich people. And at a very young age, that did something to me. And I thought, okay, if that's rich and we can't have it, why can't we have it? And that put sort of a drive in me and a work ethic that I started mowing lawns. I saved for my first motorcycle. I bought my first Trans Am, did all that. And it kind of built me into sort of the entrepreneurial spirit that I am today. That's the short version.
Interesting for me, because when I hear somebody say, I wanted to make money, most people who say they want to make money, it isn't about the money. Right. They're trying to use that. Money it's a metaphor for something else.
Right.
Does that ring any bells?
Sure. For me, it was a big dog statue.
But was it really?
Yeah, was it really, Henry? I wanted the opportunity to choose. Like, I wanted something better. I wanted to better my life. I wanted to better my parents' life.
What do you think made you do that?
Well, beyond that conversation, I had a drive to want better things. I really did. That really pushed me from a primitive level of, if other people can do this, why can't I?
And what was your answer?
I can do it.
And that's led to the phases. So just explain a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because when I listen, I've known you a long time. Mm-hmm. When I listen to the intro about you, I don't think it helps the listener, necessarily your audience, to really understand what it is about you that makes you the guy who can actually do this stuff and has been through a complicated journey. So I think you should share a little bit more of that.
Yeah. So growing up in a family, my father was also my pastor. And we had a few disagreements. I used to get a whipping where he would use hands or belts or whatever. And I remember one time I was probably 9 or 10 years old. And I remember him getting ready to give me a whipping and my sister a whipping. And I stood up in front of him and I said, don't whip her. Like, I'll take her whipping for her. And that, it was me kind of using leverage of all I could, which was wanting to put myself out there to take that whipping for her. And because I didn't want him to whip her. What could this child do against this giant of a father to have a successful outcome? In that case, that's what I did. I put myself in that position. I took it for her, and he never whipped her again.
Did he whip you?
He did. Hard. Yeah.
No residual resentment around that at all?
No, Kevin. There's not. I think everything in life is a stepping stone to the next thing. So whether that toughened me up or whatever to go on, and when they force bust other ethnic groups into my schools that I would go to at that time, we had fights in school. We would fight every day. That kind of progressed into my college days, where we would have fights there. And I remember taking a liking to working out a lot, and I boxed, something to train myself so I wouldn't get beat up anymore. And that sort of way of doing things followed me into my business career, and not being afraid to stand up against bankers or a potential investor or whatever. But it wasn't to ever bully. It was almost the opposite of that. It was almost to stand up for what was right and take care of people and not let other people get hurt.
Which is what, obviously we come from different sides of the pond and we speak the same words, but a totally different language.
Right.
Having known you for a long time, when I first started listening to your podcast, The Business Fighter, personally, when I introduce you to people, I always think of you as a collaborator. You would typically, and I'm careful how I put this, I would call you a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah.
And somehow you're the business fighter.
Right.
And that requires, in my view, a little bit of explanation, particularly for people who know you and have actually worked with and around you.
Right.
As one of the most collaborative, inclusive people I know, fighter portrays something else.
Right. Right.
In our language on this side of the pond, obviously it may be different over there with Donald and all that stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Would you just expand on that for me?
Yeah. So I think fighter, in my opinion, is more of first fighting for what's right, protecting somebody, but it also means never giving up. So fight for the right to get that loan. I was turned down by 7 bankers the first big business deal that I did, and I fought through the first one, fought through the second one, learned, fought through the third one, the fourth, fifth, sixth, and the 7th one finally said yes. So I think that's more of what fighter means to me. It doesn't necessarily, it never means go out to bully someone or just pick a fight, but defend yourself, defend others, defend what's right, and fight until you get what you want accomplished. That's more of what fighter means to me.
Okay. So I'm not going to persuade you to change it to the business collaborator.
Lover. I kind of like business lover.
Yeah, that's not going to work over here.
No.
So, talk us through a little bit more of, what you've been doing more recently, specifically. And I think it'd be useful for people to understand, where you are in life now, what you're doing now, and where you're going.
Sure. Well, I've had a successful technology company. We took it around the world. You helped us in England. We did that for a while. We had a little company called Apple step on one of our patents. That is public information now, so people can go online and see that. That's one of the biggest fights I've ever been in. You've got an individual standing up against $1 trillion company, and it's been very difficult. They throw everything at you, and they hope you quit. They hope you sit down. They hope you don't come back. But we are. And so I constantly find that standing up for the right thing and fighting for what's right for me and the people that help build the company. Not just me. It's for the whole group. I'm doing that. I'm doing some coaching. I like to coach different companies. I like to counsel different companies, help them kind of go to the next level. I'm involved in a couple of other companies myself that we're growing, and it's been a blast. I sold a company that we had about 300 employees at one point in time. There was some real estate involved, and I was able to kind of retire financially independent at 35 years old. And I was interviewed right after that, and somebody said, what would you do if money wasn't an issue? And then money was not an issue. And I said I would do what I'm doing now. I love business. I love to be in the game. I love people. I love working with people. I love putting deals together. When I come to England and I see what you do, it's like you're the English me. You have a great heart for people, and you've always been a trusted friend. I come here and I'm not turning this around. I'm not interviewing you, but I just want to make mention
Well, you are a little bit.
You're so proactive because I'm the business fighter. You're so no, I'm not. So you're so proactive, unlike anybody that I've ever known. I mean, to have pounds, 100 pounds laid out for me in the morning, and Henry, if you need this, here it is. Here's directions to where you need to go today. And I never asked you for that. You did it. You're such a kind, thorough, thoughtful human being, let alone a very successful businessman, that you've been an example for me. And when people say that about me, like you're like just like Kevin in the U.S., like I'm very honored.
Well, I'm flattered. I'm not sure I can kind of wear all of those hats that you just put there, but I'm flattered. So I'm pleased with that. I'm pleased to hear that. What I am interested in is where you go from here and how you go forward. How's life now? What are you doing? And the other thing I'm always intrigued about is when you get into a fight, all of us, I think, by nature, when we get into a fight, it's very distracting and we can find ourselves drawn into something, and it's quite a negative kind of thing. Mm-hmm. How are you balancing that?
Yeah, well, I think you first have to know what to fight for. And I think if the why is big enough, you've got the motivation, you've got the passion, and it's not just a fight anymore, it's part of your life. A lot of people come to me and they say, Henry, that's business and that's personal, but my business is personal. Like I take it personal. Like if I can't treat you like a brother and do business with you, I probably won't do business with you. So I just need to know that it's right and it's worth fighting for. But to balance it, you just don't go in an all-out fight either. You have to give a little, you have to put a little out there, you have to see the results. You have, before when I was a few years younger, I would just be all in your face. You and I both worked at a Fortune 150 corporation. It was like every day you're hitting it, you're going out, you're pounding the pavement, you're doing all these things. And I've learned with time and experience that you put a little out there, you fight for what's right, you take a step back, you don't try not to get the cart before the horse, you let things settle, and then you look at it again and again and again until you get a successful outcome.
Yeah, I get that balance. A lot of people talk to me about work-life balance, mm-hmm. and I try to explain to people I'm only having one life. They're not separate. So I don't see it. I see it slightly differently, but I see it the same way as you.
Right.
So to take a slightly different tack, but around the same thing. What do you do for fun?
I come visit my friend in Amersham. Honestly, like I told you, I've sat out there on your terrace and looked at your garden, which is a yard for the U.S. Viewers. But I've looked at your yard and just breathe, just enjoy life. I love working out. I love cars. I love travel. And it's just, where I can set back and sort of take that calm road and be calm and not have to think I've got to follow a schedule or do something necessarily. You said something to me this trip, something about if you only spend 15% of your day on work or something like that and the other on your life, that you've got more of a balanced life and you'll be happy.
Yeah. So the way I see that is work is the stuff that you have to do. And all of us have that in our day job. At some stage, we always have stuff we have to do. Right. If you've got stuff you have to do, if you can keep that at 15%, you'll have a pretty happy life. Mm. And I think that's, whether that's the paperwork piece or all the filing and all the other stuff that we all have to do. Right. That's the bit. Keep it at 15%. Right. Life will be happy.
Right.
So what else do you want to tell me, Henry? What is it I haven't asked you that I should have done?
Well, you've covered about all the deep subjects. I think letting people know that the business fighter means fighting for the right thing and really wanting everybody's outcome to be successful. And I love collaboration. I love that. I love putting the pieces together, just like you do here in England and in London and Amersham. Like everybody who meets you loves you. They always have great things to say about you. And I'm not out to win a popularity contest. I'm not out for that poll. But I think
wouldn't be able to win that.
I think if you treat people like you want to be treated, I think you'll have a very successful life.
And so I have a question that sort of relates to what does the next year, 2 years look like for you? Where are you going to be in 2, 3, 5 years? What's the short, medium term? Where do you see yourself going next?
Well, I want to continue what I'm doing. I want to continue collaborating with people and fighting for what's right. I don't think I'll ever retire. I don't think we were created to retire. I think there's always going to be another deal or another thing in life that I want to accomplish. And I'm doing what I want to do now. I'm consulting companies. Like I said, I own a couple of other companies that I love. I love developing, just finished a development. You and I talked about that. Love creating. So whatever that's going to look like in the future, it's going to involve people, probably business, creating, and getting to a successful outcome. I love that. I have that drive in me, and I would do it whether I got paid for it or not. It's like it's in me. It's in my DNA.
Right. Interesting. So coming towards the end of the conversation, one of the things I always think is a really interesting thing, there's two parts to this. One is, what would you like your epitaph to be?
That I was Kevin Ritchie's best friend. No, that I made a difference in people's life. I think that's probably the biggest thing, that I made a difference, and it was because of me that their life changed for the better.
Yeah. Cool.
And obviously a role model for my kids. I mean, that's first.
Sure. And then my final thing is, given the experience you've had, you've got a lot of variety, you've done a lot of things. One of the things I think is really interesting is often you can just pick up a few golden nuggets. And a podcast I listen to often talks about golden nuggets that we should be picking up. So what I'm wondering is, that little ticker tape, that little red ticker tape thing that goes across the bottom of the screen, usually with the share price or whatever it is.
Right.
There must be one or two things that you'd like to say to the world. What would they be?
Yeah, I think always go for it. Like, never let fear keep you from reaching out and at least going for your goal. Like, I think regret is the worst thing that could ever happen to someone. I would hate to live a life and wake up someday at 50, 60, 70, 80 and think, what if I would have done that? So I think a lot of people are afraid. They think they need to know it all before they start something. They get paralysis from analysis almost. And I think people would be better off realizing that you're never going to know everything about any deal. You know this.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to take a step. You have to go for it. And after you take that one step, even if you don't see the next step, it'll start to appear when you take that next step. And not let fear hold you back from that. And know that you're so fearfully and wonderfully made, and you're so powerful on the inside, that you're going to come up with the answer, and have that faith and confidence in yourself first, so that then you can take those steps toward your dreams, goals, and visions, and those will come true.
That's quite a long ticker tape message.
I loved it, though.
So before we round off, anything else you'd like to say to your listeners?
No. I think this has been a great interview. I appreciate you doing this and maybe clearing some things up. And when you brought that up to me a couple nights ago, I kept thinking about it, and there would be no one that I would believe in and trust like I did you to even ask me these questions. So I appreciate you putting yourself out there to do this.
Well, as you can all now tell, I'm not a professional at this at all, but I am a good friend of Henry, the business fighter, and now we know why he says that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.